Hi there, everybody. Tony Garcia, Michigan beat writer for the Detroit Free Press, joined by Sabin, Big Ten insider. We are here at the Westin Hotel in Indianapolis, where Michigan just found out it is the number 1 seed in the college football playoff and will be playing number 4 seed Alabama in the Rose Bowl. This is right where it happened about 10 minutes ago. Quite the reaction and quite the matchup.
Yeah, it was an interesting reaction from Michigan. I thought it was pretty muted. It seemed like they were like, "Oh, Alabama," and it's a rematch of the 2020 Citrus Bowl. And it's interesting to see how the programs have kind of flipped in that period. I mean, Alabama. That was considered a disappointment for Alabama. Michigan, it was more like, we're going to challenge Alabama. The roles have flipped. I mean, where Alabama is no longer maybe that dynastic program, and Michigan has become this, powerhouse within the Big Ten. 38-3, 25 straight Big Ten wins. They've had a trouble in the college football playoff, but now, they get to prove those critics wrong that say they can't win outside the Big Ten footprint. And this is the matchup that really can prove everything for Michigan going against an SEC power.
Yep. I mean, Michael Barrett said it's a prove it game. He was on the field, or he was on the team in that first Alabama game. He was talking about Jerry Jeudy and Najee Harris and Devontae Smith, and when Alabama had a bunch of NFL guys, Michigan could not quite match up with them. And I mean, you heard it. I mean, maybe the immediate reaction was sort of, whoa, Alabama, but I think they were kind of digesting it afterwards. Blake Corum, Chris Jenkins, I mean, the mentality was, Blake Corum said it specifically, it is not like, it's no longer that we want Bama. They are, as you asked them, Michigan is the 1 seed, Bama is the 4 seed, and Corum said we're not going to treat them like we're better than them, but we're not going to look up to them like, oh, this is Alabama and some big bad, like Nick Sabin and the boogeyman that they have to slay. They said, look, those numbers you just rattled off, we're 38-3, we're 13-0 this year, and this is sort of that trajectory. It's a little funny. They implement the beat Georgia drill, right? Yeah. Sort of assuming it's going to go through Georgia. It's almost, Georgia's every bit Alabama, but it feels fitting that it is Nick Sabin, that it is Alabama, and those big names that Michigan's got to do it against.
If it's not beat Georgia, it is really beat Bama. Again, the programs are very similar. They're almost facsimiles of each other. Obviously with Kirby Smart being
built in the image.
Defensive coordinator for almost 10 years, and it was, so yes, Georgia is basically like new Alabama. So, the beat Georgia drill is going to be applicable. They're going to have to try to prove that they can, control the line of scrimmage against an SEC opponent with an athletic defense. That's going to be a question mark that everybody's going to want to find the answer to come January 1st. But it's also going to be an incredible setting for Michigan. To go back to the Rose Bowl. This is a historic place for this program. Bo Schembechler built Michigan into a program that wanted to compete in the Rose Bowl. The Rose Bowl was considered the destination of all destinations. Since the college football playoff and the new way of college football, it's obviously moved on to the national championship, and Michigan's changed its goals, moved its goalposts a little bit. And so, but the fact that the Rose Bowl is maybe the introductory to, or introduction or the preamble to possibly a greater accomplishment is pretty interesting, considering the significance it has to the program.
Yes, been some time since Michigan's gone to the Rose Bowl. 15 years, lost the last 3. The last Rose Bowl, the last time Michigan won in the Rose Bowl, 1998, when they beat Washington State to earn a share of that national championship with Nebraska. And so now Michigan will have, they hope that the third time is the charm, right? This is the reason. Blake Corum and Chris Jenkins just said they got goosebumps thinking about it. It's why they came back. It's why guys like Trevor Keegan, unfortunately Zach Zinter, who can't go, this 5th-year fund, and everyone coming back to get back to this time. And so, Reiner, just initial thoughts about the matchup with Alabama. Let's start with Jalen Milroe, who is unlike anything a quarterback that Michigan's seen.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about, for Michigan's defense, because, I think they've had trouble at times handling mobile quarterbacks. Even when you look at Brendan Sorsby, who's nowhere even in the same category as Jalen Milroe, but he did create some issues even when he was in the game against Indiana. And so I think that's of some concern. And this offensive line, I mean, Drake Nugent got a little bit banged up in the Big Ten. He lost Zinter against Ohio State, and and he's one of the best road grading, interior linemen for Michigan, if not the best. And so, it's going to be a question to see whether Michigan can actually move that front seven of Alabama, and that's going to be the big concern I think Michigan has going into this game, because the offensive lines of the last 2 years were better, and they had a hard time.
They still didn't have enough.
They had a hard time moving against Georgia and TCU.
Michigan's going to have to go back to the drawing board offensively, and fortunately for them, I think it feels more fortunate this year that there is time. Like the last couple years, we'll just go back to last year, right? It felt like they were playing well. It felt like they were ready. They were ready to take off against TCU, and they maybe overlooked it, even though they said they weren't at the time. There's none of that this year. They got Bama. They have lost twice in the college football playoff in a row, right? And they're not playing their best. But they've been tested by 3 of the top 5, 10 defenses in the nation in the past 4 weeks. Penn State, Ohio State, Iowa. Those are all very good defenses, and so Michigan has seen that caliber, but Bama is going to be even yet another step.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably the worst matchup that Michigan could have hoped for, because Alabama's the one team that really has a ton of playoff experience. I mean, you saw what.
Well, Georgia.
You
mean realistically today?
Okay. I mean, out of Washington, Texas, Alabama has by far the most experience, and you can't downplay that significance, because look at what it meant for Alabama in the SEC title game. I mean, Alabama's historically, kicked butt in the SEC title game under Sabin. They took care of business against Georgia against pretty high long odds, and partially that was because Sabin seems to somehow get his team ready for that game, just like he does for the college football playoff. I mean, Alabama's got a historically good track record in the semifinal round. So,
what you would know about covering Alabama in college football playoffs, I don't know if you have much authority to speak on that. Reiner covered a national championship for Alabama, and has seen a thing or two from there. So I mean, I think you're totally right in terms of the experience. But just because Michigan has not won at that level, they do have experience in that moment. So the hope for them is it's not too big for them. The Wolverines will have a week off from here to sort of rest, get the body right. They will begin practice again in Alabama prep next week. Although Blake Corum said they're watching film on the plane ride home from Indianapolis. Are you going to be watching Alabama film? Or
I'll probably take a look at it again. I mean, to see how they've evolved since the Week 3 game against South Florida. I mean, again,
when we wrote them off on our podcast.
Put it bluntly, this is the best coaching job that Nick Saban's ever done. To get this program into the college football playoff from where it was at the beginning of the season is pretty remarkable, because this is not the same Alabama team that I saw during the 3 years that they made the college football playoff championship game. They don't have the high-end talent across the board that they did on those teams, and so this is
certainly offensively on the outside, right?
Not only just offensively, but even defensively. I mean, they don't have all of those playmakers that they've had typically. I mean, one of the teams I covered, all 11 got drafted, and it was like they had 10 turnovers returned for touchdowns. It was ridiculous. And that 2016 defense they had, I mean, it's not quite the same now for Alabama. But, it's obviously he's gotten this team to buy in and done some good things. And Jim Harbaugh's done a great job. I mean, keeping this team on the level and, focused, through this thing. So it's interesting how both of these teams have kind of navigated very difficult situations to get to where they are.
And they talked about the one-track mind. Michigan has kept it on that track and made it all the way here. Blake Corum, I think, maybe said it best. Michigan, Alabama, Rose Bowl, Big Ten, SEC. He said, does it get bigger than that?
Yeah.
And, I mean, other than it's not the national championship, It's as big as it gets, and it will be a fun week in Pasadena. Freep.com is where to get all the content until then. So for Reiner, I'm Tony. Thanks for watching. Talk to you soon.